Wednesday at 6 for the state show, and we'll possibly have to reschedule that. I'm also noticing with the internet bars on here, that's a bit shaky possibly as well. So we'll get through it. Yeah, 12 teams. The Rod Farva, I had a great comment. I went nuts when I saw the Rod Farva jumping in with 12 teams, playoff, no buys, and I went through the whole thing with the no buys. This always happens too, because you guys get in here and start making comments. Of course, it takes me a while to catch up to the comments, and I usually never do. So when I have that kind of technical issue like I did just now, I don't know, for 8.5 minutes. But I appreciate everybody's, and I see people are adding on. I didn't think anything was wrong. Yeah, Mark, no, it's not good for outliers. It's not good with buys. 8 extra teams doesn't work. Extra teams, yes. Extra teams, yes. McD, you set me up perfectly. I took your comment. I went with it. John. Even if we get the same results, that doesn't mean you don't do it. That doesn't mean you don't do what's fair and just and right and equitable and create opportunity. There's a lot of things in life that we basically know what the results are going to be, but we still go through. We still go through the process, because it's the best way to go through it. Guys wouldn't want to see a good 4-5 matchup. There you go, H-Man. More meaningful football games. So let's get to what the College Football Selection Committee is telling us. I'm going to have to go to my phone for this, since we've got, you know what? I'm going to go right here. So I'm going to comb through this article, and we're going to tear this to shreds. And I like that they're reviewing the process. I love that they're reviewing it and trying to do what's best. Okay, I like that. I commend them for that. Let's get to it here. Okay, I'm reading from Heather Dinich's article, ESPN senior writer. Arguably the most significant meetings in college football since the postseason transition from the BCS to the playoff. Subcommittee is expected to report next week, present the report, examining the strengths and weaknesses of the 14 playoff. Man, I would love to be in these meetings. Include models for expansion. Okay, this is going to be presented to the full group of FBS commissioners who constitute the College Football Playoff Management Committee. Okay. These meetings are a step in a process that will continue at least until this fall. Any change is not going to take place for 21 or 22. It would be 2023 at the earliest. In-person conversations June 17th and 18th in Chicago. I should go to Chicago and report directly from there and like badger anybody who steps out of a meeting. This is the result of 2 years of exploring possibilities that could alter the format in the future. They will be the most in-depth discussions the entire group has had on the topic since the BCS ended. Maybe they should watch this channel, hear the conversations we have. Those might be the most in-depth conversations and discussions that have been had on this topic. Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby, one of 4 people on the smaller working group, along with Notre Dame Athletic Director Jack Swarbrick, Mountain West Commissioner Craig Thompson, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. Okay, they're going to look at all aspects, whether or not the selection committee was doing what we wanted it to do. That's going to be fascinating, but I'm going to guarantee that if there's much criticism of the committee's job performance, that's not going to come out. I am just about going to guarantee that that will not be part of it. I would be shocked if they will have any negative feedback that's going to be made public about the selection committee's performance. That's not going to happen. Okay. Bowlesby says, we were asked to look at the elements of the presentation of the games. The presentation of the games? That's got to be explained to me. What does that mean? Look at the elements of the presentation of the games. Okay, fine. How it's marketed, how it's presented on television, presented in person. That's important. I don't care about that. What we do in the venues, what we did around the venues, again, don't care. We were also supposed to take a look at structure with no preconceived notions as to what should happen. Clearly, the 4-team playoff is superior to all predecessor formats. Yeah, for one reason it is. But we were asked to take a look at strengths and weaknesses. Okay. Here we are 8 years after the presentation and the implementation of the 4-team playoff. We found out about this in 2013. Of course, the first year was 2014. 8 years after it was presented, I've got the same evaluation of it. It sucks. But I have the same evaluation of it being better for one simple reason. One simple reason. It affords 2 other teams the opportunity to win a national championship. 2 other teams that clearly earned the right to be considered for the playoff. So there's never been a team that's entered the playoff that I think any of us have said, oh, this team clearly doesn't deserve to be here. Now, maybe they showed that they weren't up to the challenge on the field, i.e. Oklahoma 2019 against LSU, losing by 5 touchdowns at halftime. That's different. But they earned it. They won the Big 12. They only had 1 loss. They earned it. It's not like we had an 8-4 team in the playoff. So it's clearly a better system, not because anybody was a genius that put it together, but they added 2 teams. So it affords 2 teams that earned the right to play in a playoff the opportunity. That's the only way it's better. That's it. That's it. And I will make the same analysis I did 8 years ago when it first came out. Is there anything wrong with it? Bing! It's 4 teams. There's 5 conferences. And if you want to have a larger discussion, there are 10 conferences. But basically, there's 5 conferences. So it's flawed to begin with. Okay. In late April, after 2 days of virtual meetings, the playoff committee announced that the 4-member working group had considered some 63 possibilities for change. Would love to have heard those 63 possibilities, including models with 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 teams. Okay, the only 2 that work there are 8 and 16. Anybody who believes otherwise, anybody listening to me right now that thinks that we should have a 16 playoff or a 10-team playoff or 12, please call me and let me get the number up there. Please call me and we hope that it's going to work. Please call me if you believe that there should be a 6, a 10, or a 12. There's the number on the screen, 860-499-3332. And I will get to everybody's comments in just a second, as soon as we get through the rest of this article. I love this. I might address this. this really isn't that important. It's important because the group of five needs to be decided on. I say this all the time. You guys probably get sick of me saying it. Make a decision. Are they included or not included? Right now, they're told that they're included and they're considered, but they're not. In all practical senses, they are not included, not considered, not given any real consideration. When undefeated teams like UCF finish 12th after the conference championship game, that's the only ranking that matters, is the one, of course, after the championship game, the one that's decided on for the playoff. And UCF is 12th and undefeated. And think of the layers of teams you got to get through from 12 to 4. Cincinnati was what, 9th, correct? 9th in the final rankings last year. It's not like you're 9 and you got to get to 4 and it's paper thin. No, you would have to do mountains of work to get through those 5 teams. They're not close. They're not being considered. They're being made to feel good. Like, let's make them feel good. They're going to finish in the top 10. That's patronizing. So the American Athletic Conference Commissioner, Mike Oresco, I've heard this guy speak a few times. He really is pushing for his league to be considered a Power 5, Power 6 league. Talks about this every year at Media Days. Maybe I will attend American Conference Media Days. The past several years, they've been only about 2 hours away from me, and I've attended a few years. And he talks about the same thing every year. Group of 6, group of 6. We're in the group of 6, and he cites a bunch of statistics that make it sound good, that they should be considered. I'm sure he's leaving out other statistics that I could present. But this might be worth a video. Really looking at how good is the American Conference? How good has the American Conference played against the other leagues? And it's more than just adding up the records and saying, okay, they lost to Oklahoma, they beat Iowa, they lost, and adding it up and saying, okay, they're 19 and 32 the last 4 years against the Power 5. Okay, that's a good start. That's a good basis, but you guys know me well. That doesn't mean everything just because you're 19 and 32. Who's playing who, and should those games be expected to be? When Tulsa's the 7th best team in the conference and they're losing at Ohio State, okay, we're not going to ding the conference much for that game. So we got to seed the teams. We got to rank the games. We got to put a point total to it. We got to put it into context. But I may just do that this week. Look at the group of 5 performance or the American Conference performance against the Power 5 and put it in perspective. And then maybe we'll invite Mike Oresco, the American Conference Commissioner, on the Voice of College Football to discuss it. And I'll lay it out there for him. I'll say, you know what, Mike? You got some good points, A, B, and C. You know what, Mike? You failed to bring up that and that and that. Anything else on here? So it's possible the commissioners could receive a copy of the report. What else do we have here? Anything else that matters? Okay, if the board approves changes, that would give the commissioners the green light to use this summer to figure out how and if they can actually implement them and when. Okay. This will be the 8th season of the playoff. There's a 12-year contract. He said there's no way to predict. Swarbrick, the Notre Dame AD, is saying that there's no way to predict if they will reach a consensus. I'm going to tell you right now, they're not in reality going to reach a consensus. They're most likely going to tell us that they reached a consensus because they're going to work it out and barter, negotiate, and they'll work it out. Whatever it's come to, they're going to tell us that they reached a consensus. Okay, there it is. There it is. Let's get to all of you. Showing me I'm only 53 comments behind. It's actually a lot more than that. Touche, Justin Fuente. Fire, Justin Fuente. Well done, all of you. There we go. Even when I'm silent. BGPO Football Funk, our man DeAndre, you know what he just figures? Mark must be just bringing it. He must be preaching. I know he is. I can't hear it, but I know he's bringing it, so I'm going to support. Thanks, DeAndre. Hey, Cheryl. Good to see you. Alan, yes, I understand that you want a professional output. That's what we're looking to do. I'm running 22 channels. We don't see anybody else here. It's just me. So you're going to have to go along with us with the ride. We will do the best we can. We will improve as we go. Okay? Yes. Got Kevin on here. Mark is making some great points here, guys. All right. Phil even threw me $5 to say, Mark, let me get your attention here. Great. Thanks, Phil. Appreciate that. P digits, 55% of communication, facial expressions. Mark is right. Georgia does less with more. Totally agree, Mark. Yes, I was at my finest. I didn't annoy anybody, did I? I didn't get on anybody at all. Everybody could agree with me. Good stuff from everyone. Yes. All those wasted words, man. I really can't repeat what I said. There's just no way to repeat that. So we'll get there. We'll get on this. Still couldn't hear it. 13 after. That's right. It was about 8 minutes. Oh, DeAndre. Well, I did take about a minute to explain that, Falconer X, about Miami being much better than Ohio State. It shouldn't have taken me that long, but I wanted to really get the point across and really explain it top to bottom. That there's not a position group in Ohio State that can even come close to Miami. I am seeing names in this that I don't know that I've ever seen before. Nathaniel, hope you enjoyed the Nebraska live show tonight. I'm an amazing mime. The yoga stream. Alice from Corvallis. We'll get you an Oregon State stream and a yoga stream. Wouldn't that be entertaining, watching me do yoga? That could be painful for both me and for you. And there we got DeAndre once again contributing with nothing in return from me. Got nothing out of me. In prison. Well, didn't really want to show mom's house off here. Man, I was still hurting at this point. Where are we? Trying to get to some of your comments. And again, the phone number is down below. Hopefully it will work. 860-499-3332. I usually have to go through the board here. But yeah, we had to shut it down because you couldn't hear me. This is phenomenal that Hufferbilly, even with no audio, says got to hit the thumbs up. Just got to hit the thumbs up. Okay, here we go. We've got to address this one. P digits. Here he goes. Okay. This is a simple one to clear up. Because on the surface, I understand the argument when people say, oh, you have 4 teams, number 5 is going to complain. If you have 8 teams, number 9 is going to complain. If you have 12 teams, number 13 is going to complain. You can always say that. Okay. This is why you can't say it. So I understand that point. But that point is null and void. This is why. What guarantees right now that a college football team will make the playoff? Besides wearing Alabama colors. What do you have to do to make the playoff? What can you do to make the playoff? To guarantee you will make the playoff? Anybody? You know what it is? Nothing. You can't do anything to guarantee you will make the playoff. Going undefeated, does that guarantee you will make the playoff? Nope. And I'm not even talking about the group of 5, even within the Power 5. Fall 5 Power Conference champions go undefeated, somebody gets left out. So you cannot even tell a team right now, do this, and you will guarantee a playoff spot. You can't even outline for anyone what they can do to guarantee a playoff spot. Win all your games by 50 points. You still can't guarantee that they will make the playoffs because somebody could get left out going undefeated. Okay. That's because we've got 5 conferences and only 4 slots. What makes it different by expanding the playoff past that 5th spot and guaranteeing that every conference is represented is that suddenly you have eliminated all gripes. Now, people can complain all they want. Programs, teams, coaches can complain all they want. We could expand it to 64. There could be somebody complaining. I get that. But their complaint won't be justified because the answer is, did you win your conference? There is a spot for at least one team from every conference. Let's say we go to 8 or we go to 16. I don't want to go to 12, but if we did go to 12, all the major conferences will be represented. So if anybody bellyaches or complains about being left out, the response is simple. You could have won your conference. But that can't be stated now. Ohio State and Oklahoma in 2018 both won a conference championship. Both dominated their conferences. Both only had 1 loss. One of them had to be left out. That's just an idiotic system. That is asinine. So I have addressed that, right? Yes. They can complain, but it's not valid. It's not a valid complaint. Okay. For those of you who enjoy the NCAA basketball tournament, think of it this way. There's a huge difference there. So it's very similar in that you have a selection committee selecting the teams. But that selection committee, other than determining the seedings and where teams will be located in the bracket and will go play wherever, their role is minimized in terms of what teams are selected, because they're basically squabbling over numbers 66, 67, 68, 69. There's 68 teams make it. They're squabbling over the very back end of a 68 team tournament. The teams that they are discussing have no shot of winning a national championship. They're just wanting to make the tournament. The teams that the college football playoff selection committee are squabbling about are teams 4, 5, 6. They will be playing in a semifinal game. They do have a direct shot, legitimate shot at winning a national championship. So their power over the selection and over the sport is enormous. The basketball selection committee's power over the selection of the teams is minuscule. They're squabbling over the very back end of the tournament. They have a lot of power over seeding and placement and location. Here we've got Sue chiming in. The top 4 teams will be the top 4 teams, but if it helps the sport and they want a shot at us, Ohio State, go ahead. It's good with me. So the problem is we don't know who the top 4 teams are. That's my point. If God came down with complete omnipotence and omniscience and said, these are the 4 best teams, let them go play, then we could say, okay, but we've got 13 flawed human beings who have limited perspective, and we don't have enough teams playing each other. We have the Pac-12 playing 1 game against the SEC usually. That's ridiculous. And then we're trying to evaluate teams that mostly don't play each other, and then don't even play a team that played the team that we're trying to connect and compare them to. So we don't know who the 4 best teams are. In other sport, we don't necessarily know the 4 best teams or the 12 best teams or the 16 best teams or however many teams make the playoffs, but we know which teams earned it because they have a clear system. And if you go back to a live stream that we did with all of you, and it was a great live stream, enjoyed it so much because you guys were fired up, amped up. I presented my playoff system. And then I took a bunch of questions from people, and they started asking, well, how would you select this, Mark? And how would you select that? And I kept going back to my formula saying, I'm not selecting anything. This system selects everything. It's like at NFL playoff time, if somebody would say, how did the Pittsburgh Steelers get selected for the playoffs and the Kansas City Chiefs didn't? How did that work? Well, nobody needs to explain anything or say, well, we selected the Steelers because we thought their strength of schedule was really good, and we didn't pick the Chiefs because they had too many injuries. No, nobody has to explain anything. They go, those are our rules. Number 1, overall record. Number 2, record in the conference. Number 3, head-to-head. They go through the whole list, and then it decides. The system should decide the playoff teams, the objective system. So you build a good system, then nobody's making selections. It's not an invitational. It's not a party. We're inviting people. No. Should have an objective system. So we had a fun live stream with that. I could do a live like that every week. We should do that. Just as we continue to get more and more people in here, educate them on these points. And of course, I want to hear from you and learn from you. Works both ways. Okay, what are we? Oh, boy, boy, boy. Hey, Tim, I have to think at some point, for as much as you watch this channel, God bless you for doing so, that you've heard me point by point by point explain to you why that doesn't work. It will not work. Talk to McD. Do I want to go through this again? Do we have enough people on here that don't understand why buys don't work in college football? Or we do it like this, Tim. You could go through the last 7 years of the playoff. You select your 6 teams each year. Give me a call. You submit your 6 teams, and the two teams that get the buys include that. So give me the 6 each year. Give me the 2 buys, and I hate to do it to you, but I will tear it to shreds. Key digits still likes 4. McD's telling me that I will never convince him otherwise. It's going to be 12. Man, I hate to see it. So if we've got 12, we've got how many buys? Is it 4? No, then the other 18. So if you've got 12, you play a first round to get it down to 8, right? So you can do that a few different ways, right? Somebody help me out. I don't want to think too much here. 12, I'm going to work it down to 8 for the second round. So you have 4. Yeah, so you've got 4 buys, another 8 play, and you've got 4 winners versus 4 buys. And that's screwed up. So Tim, from that standpoint, I don't necessarily have a huge issue with the 5 conference champions and the 1 wild card. In terms of it affords 2 other teams the opportunity to win a national championship. But you can never, it will be impossible for you to fairly figure out, you can pick them out of a hat, who gets the 2 buys. And the 2 buys are crucial. There is such an advantage. People don't understand what the advantage is. They just think, well, the advantage is you can't lose. And that's it. Move on. No, it's a lot deeper than that. George, I would love for you to be right, but I don't believe you are when you say they are never going to give a bye in a playoff. Still going to have bowl games like we have bowl games now. Now, there's a playoff eliminator right there, the Pitt-Tennessee game that Talkers Pitt is looking forward to so desperately. Okay. Asim, the number's 12, possibly, not 72 to get Tennessee in. We're not working on 72 teams getting in, just 12. Once the SEC has a 2-loss champion, the expansion narrative will change a lot. Well, the SEC could have had a 2-loss champion in 2017, and that team would have made the playoffs. All right, so we need to get, so everybody contact Joel Klatt on Twitter, get him on here. Love the guy, he's amazing, he's very insightful, knows his stuff, have all the respect in the world for the guy, but I would love to debate him on the 12-team playoff. And maybe you'll win me over. If you can, in a valid way, in a fair and valid way, determine who gets the buys and why they receive those buys, you'll win me over. Because it works in the NFL. I don't even love it in the NFL, but it works. You know why it works in the NFL? Because you've got an objective system, and because all those teams are constantly playing each other, so their records are valid. So when a team goes 14-2 and earns a bye in the NFL over another division champ who's 11-5, we know it means something, because their schedules, we can line them up and be like, okay, they played like 11 of the same 16 teams, and the other 5 that were different are so much alike. The talent level and the level of play is so identical, and they all play each other constantly, that the records are valid. Therefore, it validates a team earning a bye, let's say with a 14-2 record over a team with a 11-5 record. That doesn't exist in college football. Does not exist. Pick a year, I'll tear it to shreds. Give me a year, and we'll go through it. Derwake, college football playoff is a joke. Same full of teams was over and over with the state group of 5, etc. So I appreciate your frustration there, Derwake, and you think it's a joke. I've said it's a joke many times. I like it. I enjoy it. I think, and I don't, it's not that the team that won the national championship is not typically the best team, or a team we can say, okay, they earned it. We've never had a national champion where I thought, you know, they squeaked into the playoff. They shouldn't have been there. Now, true, I did not think that the 2017 Alabama team should have received a playoff spot. But there's a difference between earning the spot and being one of the 4 best teams. Case in point, 2018. 2018 was the year, 2019. 2019 was the year that we had the 3 undefeated teams, LSU, Clemson, Ohio State, and then we had a 1-loss conference champion in Oklahoma. Oregon lost 2 in winning the Pac-12. So it was a clear cut. It's the only year that it's been where I had no argument. I basically said, it figured itself out. It makes sense. I don't like it. I don't like seeing a conference champion left out just because they lost 2 games against Oklahoma's 1 game. Shouldn't be the eliminator. But the way it's set up, that makes sense. Those are the 4 teams. Now, I clearly stated that particular year. Again, this is 2019. Those are the 4 teams that earned it. But whether some caller asked me this or I just came out and said it, I said those aren't, in my opinion, the 4 best teams. But they're the 4 teams that earned it. You got 3 undefeated conference champions, and you got your best record-wise, best conference champion, Oklahoma, with 1 loss. But I clearly said at the time, if you were going to put a gun to my head or say, Mark, put your mortgage on the line, who are the 4 best teams in 2019? LSU, Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama. They didn't win the division. They lost 2 games. They shouldn't have been in the playoff. I'm not arguing that. They didn't earn it. But would Alabama have been losing to LSU by 5 touchdowns at halftime? Of course not. They were the 4th best team, not Oklahoma. So there's a difference between earning and the best. Brad Bell. Elite Eight deals with major conferences plus allows smaller conferences more of a chance while maintaining the quality of playoff football. It's well stated. Thank you. And as I said during our mammoth playoff format live stream that we did 3 to 4 months ago, it's one of my favorite live streams ever. I delivered my whiteboard with my formula. All of you chimed in. We took great calls, great conversation. Point number 1 in all this needs to be, what do we do with the group of 5? Make a decision. Somebody with some guts, I'll use that term, somebody with guts, make a decision. Either tell them to get lost, you're not part of this, or formally include them. And you know what? I kind of don't care, because I can see both arguments. I can say, I can see the argument that says the group of 5 is not playing at the same level as the Power 5. They should not be included in a playoff. I can also understand the argument that, okay, yes, the group of 5 is not on par with the Power 5, but it's not like 1 or 2 or 3 group of 5 teams. It's dozens of group of 5 teams. There's an overlap. It's not like you can list all 65 Power 5 teams in terms of quality and then starts the group of 5 as the number 66 team. No, there's quite a bit of overlap. The Boise States and the UCFs and the San Diego States and the Houstons, typically Cincinnati's and Memphis's, and these teams are much better than Kansas and Rutgers and Illinois and these other teams. So there's a significant overlap between the 2 levels of football, but overall the Power 5 is significantly better. So that's why the group of 5, if included, should not get anything close to the same slice, but give them a slice and give it to them formally. So we know best group of 5, they're in. Tim, so you're telling me that teams would turn down buys. They would say, oh, you gave us a buy, we don't want it. We'd rather play. We'd rather risk losing the game, getting players hurt. So when I say players hurt, I mean players banged up, nicked up, beat up. We know what these playoff games have done to these teams that have to then play a week later. In this scenario, with more layers of playoffs, they'll have to play the next week. It's not going to be like a semifinal game on a Friday night, championship game on a Monday, 10 days later. It's going to be Friday night game, Friday night game. Or they're going to extend this playoff way too long if they're waiting almost 2 weeks to play the next round of the playoffs. So these teams are going to have to turn around quickly that played. And you're missing... Tim, I guarantee you're missing the biggest point in that. Okay, number 1, if you don't play, you have no chance of losing. That's point number 1. That's the most obvious, but it's the most important. You have no chance to lose if you're given a bye. And again, these teams will be given a bye. They will not have earned a bye. They will be given a bye. So number 1, you can't lose if you get a bye. Number 2, you're healthy. From the standpoint of not getting nicked up and still playing and not being 100%, but you eliminate the possibility of a key player being knocked out for the game. Not just nicked up where he's not 100%, but being knocked out, hurt, knocked out for the rest of the season, for that next game. Point number 3, guessing you didn't think of this. Okay. Let's go with this scenario. The playoff format and the seedings are announced. It's just the next day after the conference championship games, and we get our first 16 playoff, our first playoff format that includes byes. Okay. Alabama gets a bye. That's not too much of a stretch for some of us to imagine. Alabama gets a bye. They're playing the winner of Oklahoma and Oregon. Okay? And Oklahoma and Oregon are going to play in 2 weeks. Okay. And Alabama will play the winner a week after. So, in addition to Oklahoma and Oregon risking a loss, so only one of them is going to win, so there's a 50% chance that you're not going to make it to play Alabama. Number 2, your team's going to get nicked up and beat up and bruised. Number 3, you could completely lose a player of significance, or 2 or 3. Number 4, okay, Oklahoma and Oregon need to lay it on the line to win that game, right? They can't like, we're going to hold back 70% of the playbook because, we'll beat them. No, they're going to have to lay it on the line to win the game. Survive and advance. What's Alabama going to be doing for 3 weeks? While Oklahoma has to scout Oregon and put all its focus on Oregon, and Oregon needs to channel everything into Oregon, they have to prepare for each other and be completely dismissive of Alabama and be focused just on beating the other team. What can Alabama do for 3 weeks? I'll tell you what. They can prepare for Oregon and Oklahoma. For 3 weeks, they can prepare for that game. The winner of Oklahoma and Oregon can lick its wounds and only have about 6 days, really only have about 3 days to put in a game plan for Alabama because they put everything they needed to into the first game to win it. Alabama can sit around for 3 weeks and they can run their players through the paces. They can study Oregon and Oklahoma and have them down cold. No buys. It's totally unfair. All right, so I'll try to get to some of these comments. If anybody has anything for me. Hufferbilly is saying the group of 5 should not be considered. Different strength of schedule. Group of 5 can only win out of sheer luck. Well, Hufferbilly, I understand your point. I agree with it. It's a different level of football. If they won, it would not be sheer luck because they'd have to win like 3 or 4 consecutive games. That's a lot of luck. So for them to win one game, I don't even think it's luck. We just saw Georgia and Cincinnati play a pretty good game. So, but your point's well taken, and I can go either way in the group of 5. Again, if somebody crazy came along and said, well, the group of 5 would be given the same number of seats at the table, well, then that would be unfair because clearly it's not at the same level. Pitt, UCF, 20, yes. So UCF beat Pitt and Pitt back at UCF. Yeah. So maybe I'll take some time. If I was going to get some views on the video, and if you guys want to see this, I'll go through the group of 5. I will go through the American Conference and see how the American Conference is played against the Power 5. Okay. Okay. Go through every year, Tim. Tell me who the top 2 teams are and who should get buys. Style points. Can you calculate those for me? Those style points in eye tests. 2019. LSU, Clemson, Ohio State, all undefeated. What 2 teams get the buys? Oh, the ones with the style points. Oh, those would have been LSU, Clemson, and Ohio State. Oh, the ones that looked impressive in the eye test. Oh, you mean LSU, Clemson, and Ohio State. Oh, I have 3 buys. Well, that doesn't work. Matty Lins, the American could honestly replace the Pac-12 as the 5th Power 5 conference at this point, since they have the same amount of college football playoff appearances in the last 5 years. Well, you know what's wrong with that comment, Matty. And you might have something there in terms of them. And what's funny is the Pac-12 takes a hit where the ACC's been just as bad as the Pac-12, but they've got 1 team out of 14. Yeah. What needs to be certainly clarified in your statement is the Pac-12 missing the playoffs has less to do with the Pac-12 and has more to do with the playoff committee not selecting them. They didn't get selected. They didn't miss the playoff. They didn't get selected for the playoff. It's the difference. Jeremy thinks Cincinnati will make the playoff this year. The formula for them is, of course, to go undefeated, which includes wins over Indiana and Notre Dame, both on the road, and then for Indiana and Notre Dame to turn around and have the type seasons that they're capable of having. It would be tremendous. It would be so hysterical if Cincinnati did that, and Indiana in particular went 11-1, won the Big Ten to go 12-1, and was the Big Ten champion at 12-1. That would be phenomenal. That would be so hilarious. Sooner Thrawn with the 16. I love the 16 too, in terms of just the play in the field. Now we can get into how many games they're going to play, and I understand the human element of it. If we could just play it like a video game, yeah, go to 16. I laid out on that live stream I keep referencing, I laid out what a 16-team playoff would have looked like during these 7 playoff years if we would have just gone with the playoff committee rankings. And also, if we would have went with the 10 conference champions and 6 wild cards. And even that, the game matchups are ridiculous. Just fun. Great stuff. Got an update here from Raheem, who is telling us that Shamar Stewart, the 5-star D lineman, just touched down in Columbus 48 minutes ago. Okay. We've talked a lot about Shamar Stewart. You guys are unaware of all the content we provide. It's not just here on the main channel. We've got 22 team channels. So much of the Ohio State-centric content, Michigan-centric, Alabama-centric, and I could go on down the list, are on those channels. I am trying to clear the way and unclutter this channel for national talk and breakdown. I did my top 25 quarterbacks in college football 2 days ago. I've got all the notes set up to do running backs and wide receivers. I will deliver those videos soon. Pretty good point there, H-Man. Alabama has been the best playoff team, of course. Clemson, probably a second over Ohio State. That's debatable. But those three have basically owned the playoff, and they've only beaten each other. Nobody else outside of the LSU championship game win over Clemson, nobody else has beaten those three. They only beat each other. And that's what's happened. But when we make those teams have to go through layers of playoff, it opens up the possibility of exactly that. Hey, Bruce. Oh, man. "12 is a joke. Not for the reason you think, LW, but that's certainly your opinion. 8 at the most. 12 is a joke because of the buys." Brad Bell says, "Still got the Michigan question. How many games do they win?" Steve Day said 8. I don't believe that, but how about you? I have not given my prediction yet on Michigan football, but 7 to 8 seems in range. I believe, excuse me, could be a big sneeze coming on here, maybe. All right, so Steve actually sent me his over-unders prior to releasing them, and I thought he had Michigan under. But I will be predicting all that in late August. Big man had a dream that Nebraska beats Oklahoma 24-21 last second field goal. I can only hope go Big Red. Hope. Hope is a great thing. Don't give up hope. Caveman, love the hope. Hold on to hope. Maddie says that Larry Scott was the Butch Jones of the Pac-12. Dude, it turned Pac-12 football into an absolute dumpster fire. Much of that is true. Too much emphasis on the other sports. The other sports are great, especially in the Pac-12. The Pac-12 actually, if you're just a sports fan, you're not a football fan at the collegiate level, a sports fan, then we've got a whole different discussion because the Pac-12 is the best conference historically. Larry Scott focused on the Olympic sports too much. Football is what gains attention and makes money. Bruce is telling us that Zach Rice was wearing an Ohio State hat on Instagram. Is that a hint? Well, for some players it is. For other players it's not. Some guys just like gear. There are thousands of pictures out there of players who wore gear for teams that they only considered. Rod Farba, nicely done. We got Gator Zoned chiming in. Appreciate seeing all of you here. Thank you so much for your. Oh, okay, Gator Zoned. I missed your other super chat, so let me catch up with that as well. Okay, Gator Zoned says scenario: undefeated Alabama beats a one-loss Georgia team in the championship game. Georgia now has 2 losses, gets a higher seed than the one-loss Florida team who lost. Or do they? So, okay, Alabama's undefeated. Georgia, let's say they lost to, well, they lost to who won the head-to-head? Georgia won the head-to-head. Okay. Georgia wins the head-to-head. They lose to Clemson, let's say. They win the head-to-head against Florida. Well, Georgia's still the higher-ranked team. They won the head-to-head, especially if it's convincing. If it's convincing, then forget it. End of argument. If it's epic, 45-42, then we've got an argument. But what about Florida's loss? Florida loses to Georgia. Georgia's other loss, did they lose to Clemson? Close. That loss would have to be evaluated. We got to look at resumes. We got to look at complete resumes at that point. But I still believe because Alabama, based on your scenario, they're number 1. They're undefeated. They're number 1. Georgia, if Georgia gets annihilated by Alabama, then again, consideration needs to be given. But Georgia beat Florida head-to-head, and the only games they're losing is to an Alabama team that is consensus number 1. Georgia's going to maintain a higher seed in that scenario. Gator Zone just says, let them mark. Georgia needs opportunities too. Coming from Gator Zone. What's the playoff count for these two now? Thank you so much for the contribution. I probably shouldn't bring this up then. Georgia 1, Florida 0. Soonerthon is telling us that since 2012, Texas has 139 4 and 5 stars. K-State 2. They have the same Big 12 winning percentage. That is crazy. Crazy stat. I believe it. 2? K-State. The digits, who's going to be better, Texas A&M with a loss to Alabama or an undefeated East Georgia team asking for a friend? Well, what happens in the SEC championship game? I'm guessing that Georgia loses to Alabama. Oh, undefeated Georgia. Yeah. SEC championship game, what happens? Each man, there will be 4 or 5 SEC teams if they go to 12. I guarantee it, and I'm fine with it if they are truly the 4 or 5 of the best 12. Might be biased. Well, again, if we've got a selection process, then I've got a huge issue with it. But if we've got a true objective playoff system, then I'm all for it. So I've got no 4 or 5 SEC teams out of 12. If they earn it objectively, if they're selected, then I got a problem with it because the current playoff system sucks. That's obvious. And it's a selection process. Get rid of the selection process. Oh, yeah, I was going to do something on this, but haven't had the time. Thoughts on Nick Saban's extension? I'm calling it he'll win 10 titles for Bama. Yeah, I think he got extended through 2028. What's he going to be at that point? That's 7 years from now. He'll be like 676 or 7. Okay, 7 more seasons. He wins 3 more. Okay, it's reasonable. It's crazy for him to maintain that pace, but I wouldn't be surprised. There it is, Joe C. 18 buys. Love it. Okay. All right, Jordan. Always appreciate your comments, man. You know that. Here's the deal, though. This argument that there will be less meaningful games if the playoff is expanded doesn't make sense. This is why. Will there be a few games, a couple games that are less meaningful or meaningless? Possibly. Yes, that's possible. In your scenario, if Alabama and Auburn are undefeated, or let's say Alabama's undefeated, would they have some type of incentive to lay down, not play their starters, lose the game? But we still have conference championship games. So if Alabama loses this regular season game to Auburn, then they got to go to the SEC title game with one loss. So let's even take your example and go to the conference championship game. Pick your team, Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, whomever is undefeated in a conference championship game and knows their number one consensus. They're not going to drop below whatever number, and they can just lay down in the conference championship game. Okay. Okay. That could happen. It's possible. Okay. I think these players have too much pride in the coaching staffs as well. But especially since they don't have to play the next week. They play 3 weeks later. But this is what I'll say to that. For the very rare case and possibility that some teams will lay down, like we see in the NFL at times, lay down and not intentionally lose a game, but not care if they win or lose a game, there will be dozens of games. I mean dozens of games that will suddenly now have meaning that did not have any meaning before. When 9-1 LSU is playing 8-2 Auburn, where that's just a nice game now. It's a nice game. One of them's ranked number 8, the other one's number 11, and it's a nice game, and it's a lot of NFL players, and it's just a good game. But neither one's going to make the playoff. It's suddenly a playoff meaningful game. There's going to be dozens of games like that. For the 1 or 2 or possibly 3, if anything close to that go from being meaningful to not meaningful because a team has clinched a playoff spot, there are going to be dozens and dozens and dozens of games that suddenly become meaningful. Okay, that's point number 1. Point number 2 is that if you now have playoff games on campus and home field given to the top seeds, then you make it very precarious for those teams to say, you know what, we're undefeated, we're going to lose a game, big deal. Okay? You want to do that? Okay? You want to do that if you're Clemson? If you want to go play in Madison, Wisconsin in mid-December, if you want to give up your home field advantage, if you want to lose this game somewhat intentionally to not get hurt, and you want to go to Columbus or Madison, Wisconsin in the middle of December, or Seattle, Washington, sure, go right ahead. There's your other deterrent. That will take care of that. Okay, Anthony says, Mark, can you have a mixture of the college football playoff ranking system Okay. And the BCS ranking system, or is that too convoluted in your opinion? Okay. It's not convoluted as much as it is ineffective. So understand that the college football playoff ranking system, there is no ranking system. There's no system. It's just a selection. It's just people ranking teams. They don't have to in any way justify their rankings. They just rank them. They don't have to say, well, we ranked offenses and defenses and strength of schedule, and we gave 9 points out of 10 for this category and 7 out of 10 for that. No, there is no system. There's no ranking system. It's just a ranking. Okay, the BCS ranking system was a system. It was 2/3 human vote and 1/3 computer system, computer ranking. That was the final iteration of it. It had a number of iterations because it kept letting us down, kept spitting out a bad result, and so they kept tweaking it, and it never got fixed. So I don't know what that mixture would be, because actually the BCS ranking system was the mixture. It was the mix of the computers and the human vote. And basically the human vote overrode the computers anyway, because they had 2/3 of the power. So that overrode the computer ranking anyway. And what it gave us was, it gave us a 1998 where we had 6 one-loss teams that had to fit into one spot to play Tennessee. That didn't work. It gave us the year 2000 when Washington beat Miami and Miami beat Florida State, and they all had 11-1 records. But who went to the championship game? Oh, Florida State, the team that lost to Miami. It also gave us 2001 when Nebraska went and lost in humiliating fashion to Colorado on Thanksgiving weekend, giving up 62 points, but still made the national championship game. Oh, and didn't win their division. Therefore, they did not play in the conference championship game, then went out to the Rose Bowl and got annihilated in the BCS championship game. It also gave us 2003, in which Oklahoma lost the Big 12 championship game, not by a field goal, by 28 points, 35-7, and still went to the BCS championship game. Oh my, and it gave us 2005, let's see, 04, of course, we had what we had in 04. In 2008, it gave us a Texas-Oklahoma, Texas Tech log jam, which produced an Oklahoma team going to the championship game that lost to Texas and had the same record, and Texas got left out. Oh my goodness. Go. A lot of people believe what Haas 304 is saying right there. He would rather see a Group of 5 playoff and championship. I got it. Mike, let's see if I can make anything out of what you just said here. It's not whether the Group of 5 should or should not be in the running. It's that having a system without buys won't work. It's that having a system without buys won't work. It's actually a system with buys won't work. Okay. Anyway. There you go, George. I could say a lot about that. H-Man, appreciate that. 71 watching, 49 likes. And actually, those numbers are worse than that, because if we've got 71 watching, we've got 72 right now. we probably have had about 500 people come through and only 49 likes. So this is my time to stop talking college football for a quick second and just say you can help out the channel a number of ways. Please like the videos, as H-Man is right there. Please like the videos. Share, share, share. Get out there on social media. Let people know that we're here talking college football every day. Every day. We got live streams going every day. I know not here on the main channel now every day, but somewhere under the Voice of College Football, we're live streaming every day and taking your calls and responding to you. So we've got this conversation going every day. So please get people in here. Wouldn't it be awesome if in a couple months, instead of 74, we had 700? And if all of you, and I know you do, know college football fans, just let them know we're here. Gator Zoned. Oh, I touched upon that. Thank you for the super chat. I believe we also have another one coming in here from, oh, I missed it. Oh, King Vegeta. King Vegeta, where are you? Andy K, hang on. I don't want to miss any of these. King Vegeta, thank you so much for that. King Vegeta, can't wait for that game at the Rose Bowl, and it's going to be a pretty game. I rarely care about this, and even in this case, I don't care, but it's going to be a pretty game. It's at the Rose Bowl. It's going to be beautiful, beautiful grass. It's like playing on a master's course, from what I understand. I've not been to the Rose Bowl myself. I've seen it, not been inside the stadium, but with those UCLA uniforms and those LSU uniforms on that beautiful field with the big rose, picturesque. It could be a good game. Well, King Vegeta is telling us it's going to be a great game. So, King Vegeta, thank you so much for the super chat contribution tonight. You as well, Andy. Here's Andy's playoff format. 8 teams, 5 Power 5 winners, and 3 at-large, all neutral site games. Okay? I can agree with that, and I have agreed with that. The only thing I will add there, Andy, is unlike anybody else I've seen, I might be wrong, because I've not seen everybody's playoff format. I'm the only person that has determined and explained how the 3 at-large will be selected. Everybody, I'm hearing, not everybody, all sorts of people say 5 Power 5 winners, 3 at-large. That's one format I keep hearing. But as far as I know, I'm the only one who has explained how those 3 will be selected. Because that's not just, let's make another committee that's going to select teams. I don't want that. All right, Anthony says, Mark, so we don't have parents complaining that their team got snubbed. Can you have a mixture of the college football playoff system and the BCS combined? We addressed that. Okay. Anthony wanted to make sure he got that in, so he wrote that again. I want to remind everyone here that we are covering national topics here at the Voice of College Football on the main channel. You're going to see a lot of breakdowns of rankings and ratings, and I did a series a couple weeks back where I went through preseason number 1 teams and where they landed. I went through preseason number 2 teams who theoretically are being predicted to lose the national championship game and where they finished. And then I went through the national champions back to 1950, where it started, and I made some sense of it, put it into context. I have ranked my top 25 quarterbacks for 2021. Check out that video. The top 25 at each position is coming, and a lot of other great things. Let me see if I can find this list for you. This is what I'm working on. I want this main channel to be just ridiculous amounts of analytics and discussion and debate on ratings and rankings and everything that's going on nationally in college football. All right. Schedule previews. Post-spring top 25. Of course, I'm going to hit my top 25 before the season starts. You guys can pick on me for that. Teams that can win the national championship. I talked about this the other day. I released a video that I enjoyed delivering it. Talking about these 5 teams that just about everybody's got in the top 5 in various orders. Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Georgia. And I tackled the topic of inexperienced quarterbacks having a shot of winning a national championship. Please check out that video. Possible wildcard teams that could win a national championship. I have evaluated all the programs in college football for this past decade, from 2010 through 19. I'm going to release this video soon. DeAndre, if you're listening to me, this is the kind of stuff that you should enjoy. I've evaluated all the programs in college football from 2010 through 19, that decade, the teens, and I came up with a point system that's based on a number of areas of achievement: winning percentage, conference championships, national championships, etc. Wins over ranked teams, all that. And I'm going to display I'll either do a top 10 or top 15 teams of the decade of the teens. And if that gets well received, I'll do it for other decades as well. Then I want to take that system and apply it to all-time rankings, all-time program rankings. As I mentioned, we have launched our series rating the top 25 at each position in college football. The quarterbacks are out there. I wanted to record the running backs tonight and get that out there. I may not have enough in me to do that. We'll see. Coaches rankings, those have been released. I've done the coaches rankings for all the conferences, and I should probably put together a top 10 nationally. I ranked all the programs 1 through 130. Maybe I'll do a program rank or a team ranking for 2021. Different than a program ranking, team ranking for 2021, 1 through 130. Best non-conference games, best week 1 games. We've got a preview of the Georgia-Clemson game. Check it out. It's doing very well on the Clemson channel. Check it out. Clemson, Georgia preview. I've released a Tennessee Bowling Green. Yes, we're the voice of college football. So even a Tennessee Bowling Green preview is on the SEC channel. Ohio State, Minnesota. I'm going to do others. I'm working on Texas, Louisiana, week 1 preview. So that's why you need to be locked in on all the channels. We can't just stockpile all the content here because it gets cluttered. People get frustrated. So we are clearing space here on the main channel. It's causing me to take a number of steps back financially to hopefully take some steps forward. Unclutter the channel, give clear identity to this channel as a national college football channel. Then we've got all the team channels. Now, if I've got nothing to release that particular day, I may take a Georgia conversation, a Penn State conversation, and put it here on the main channel at times. Best non-conference games of 2021. Best week 1 games. Week 1 previews, working on all these things. Best games in each conference. Conference power rankings. Hardest schedules, easiest schedules. Just some of the things I'm looking at right now and I've already started to work on. This is my goal. Well, I've got about 52 goals, but this is one goal we have for this college football season. For most of you, I think you've been locked in here at the Voice of College Football through a college football season, and you know, for as nuts as we go and for as much as we are just foot on the pedal during the off season, when the season starts, then no holds barred. You know, we're here Thursday night after the games, Friday night after the games, Saturday after the noon games, Saturday before the primetime games, Saturday after the primetime games. We're just full throttle. Okay. In addition to me being here with the call-in shows on the main channel, this is my hope that we have live post-game on all our team channels. Now, I can't clone myself to be there for all those, but I am looking for capable people, capable, knowledgeable college football people. So maybe you can help me out, who can cover a team. So if you know a great Auburn guy or lady, female would be fabulous, an Auburn person, or group of people would be better, so they can have discussion. Let me know. And so if you weren't listening, I'm not just talking about Auburn. They were just an example. Any team, let them know the opportunities out there. Let me know who they are, and I mean a capable person to cover post-game, preferably pre-game, halftime, and post-game. So, for example, on the Clemson channel, I want a pre-game, I want a halftime, I want a post-game. Texas channel, pre-game, halftime, post-game, but definitely post-game. So let me know if you've got some suggestions. You can always hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. All right, what else are you guys talking about here? Ronnie says, Miami and Florida State are getting Florida talent while Gators can barely scratch the surface. What a shame in the face of the state. Yeah. They are getting outworked. Yes, it could. Gus Malzahn and USCF win the national championship. I would love it. Hey, George. We need to get rid of the SEC championship. It's just ruining SEC teams' playoff chances. Okay, this is how long we've had the college football playoff. 2014, Alabama won the SEC championship, and they went to the playoff. The team they beat, Missouri, had no chance of making the playoff. 2015. Alabama won the SEC championship game. They beat Florida. Florida had no chance. Alabama went to the playoff. 2016. Alabama beat Florida in the SEC championship game. Florida had no chance of getting to the playoff. Alabama won the SEC title game. They made the playoff. 2017. Okay. Georgia won the SEC championship game. And they made the playoff. Alabama did not make the playoff or the SEC title game, and they still made the playoff. 2018, Alabama won the SEC championship game, beating Georgia. Okay, that did knock Georgia out. Okay, that was the second loss, which knocked Georgia out. But Alabama won, and they went to the SEC. They went to the playoff after winning the SEC. 2019, LSU, of course, beat Georgia. They marched on to the playoff. 2020, Alabama in defeating Florida. So everybody who wins the SEC championship game goes to the playoff, and most of those teams that they beat did not have a chance to get to the playoff. A couple did. And then in one case, one of those teams that did not make the playoff or the SEC title game got to the playoff. It's the same kind of. Right. Hold. Oh, you know what happened here probably is that it's not going through my system. Why are you on hold? Huh, that's not showing up there that I got a call. So I apologize if, so I got this right up here and it's showing me 0 calls for all this time. It has shown me the entire time that I've received no calls. So I don't know if how many of you heard, well, nobody heard me for the first 8 minutes. How many of you heard my explanation of what's going on at my mom's house? She's unfortunately had an issue. I wasn't here intending to take care of her during an issue. I just came out for a visit. She had an issue. She's been in the hospital for 4 days. I've been spending all the time that I can, the 12 or 13 hours that they allow us to be in the hospital, So I've had to cut the rest of the videos late night here, and that's why we're on. I did bring my equipment, but did not bring a mic. So we've had issues with the call-in system and the internet not attaching to the call-in system, etc. So that's where we stand. Hopefully she's going to be released tomorrow, we're hoping, after 4 or 5 days. And I will be back in my digs sometime soon. He digits. What you got here? Dan Mullen's recruiting would improve if he practiced polygamy. Oh man. So I appreciate the super chat. I will not comment on Dan Mullen's off the field excursions. Because as you guys know, I'm just not that, I just don't run that kind of show, but it is somewhat amusing. Bruce, imagine having Clemson, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ohio State, USC Gators winning for championship. Yes. Real City. Man, I'm seeing a lot of good people here for the first time in the live chat, and I always find out that some people just kick back. They just kind of kick back and just enjoy the content. And I love it, but I would love to hear from all of you. And sometimes I find out, man, somebody just found us, and other times I find out that somebody's been watching a long time. They just decided to comment. So Trail City, I don't believe I've ever seen you before. I appreciate you being here. And thanks that I just need to rapid fire through these comments. Kind of like Feinbaum, who never really answers anybody's questions except to say when somebody says, what do you think LSU's chances of winning the SEC are this year? And he'll say, oh, they're pretty good. They're really talented. They could get it done. Possibly they got to get by Alabama. Wait. Okay. Well, P Digits, thank you, man. I do my best. It's not what it used to be. I was on here a couple weeks ago, and my goodness, every name I was trying to pull from like 15 years ago, they were all guys that I'd watched play like 37 times, that I used to know their stats, and I couldn't even pull their names out of my head at that point. But I appreciate it. Or that's not the comment I wanted there, but yes, Clint, thank you. Hit the thumbs up. Somebody commented that we should go from 69. I think he was talking about the number of people on the 420. Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Sorry about that, gold and blue. It's showing C. I'm not going to go through all the technicalities of it, but basically it's showing no calls coming through. Because, yeah, that's just what it is. Oh, come on, 28, 80, 28. The BCS clearly screwed up 2000, 01, 03. Just a number of times. We can go through it. Even the times that it maybe I just don't have patience tonight. I've just talked that through so many times, and just it's like the years that it was clearly right. Well, a 5-year-old could have selected the two teams. They were the only two undefeated teams. All the other years are super speculative, starting with the very first one. The BCS should apply to, I guess I should take down the number, huh? The BCS should apply to Major League Baseball. That's the best place for the BCS to thrive, where it has the most data. Actually, Major League Baseball should take the BCS, apply it to its schedule, and then say we don't have to play playoffs. We can just play a World Series because the BCS, if you apply that to all the games that they play against each other, perfect evaluation system. Actually, I totally agree with that because I want to see games played on the field. But you get my point. The BCS is for evaluation of teams that have played against each other over and over and over and over and over. Troy says the best team wins the title almost every year in college football. Okay. Well, you understand the teams that don't make the playoff can't win the playoff. So let's understand that first. In 2020, I think we can all agree that Alabama showed to be the best team throughout the season through the playoff. Okay. Did they ever play Clemson? No. So could they have lost to Clemson? Possibly. But not everybody can play everybody. That's not the way playoffs work. Even in the NFL, you could always say, well, that team might have been able to beat that team, but they just didn't meet in the playoffs. That's always going to happen. But Alabama was clear. 2019 LSU seemed to be clear, but then again, Ohio State didn't necessarily get beaten, depending on your perspective on that game. So did the best team win? You know, I think we can feel pretty comfortable with LSU in 2019. You know, as we take it through the years, when there were, and somebody brought up 2003 with USC and Auburn, that would actually be 2004, but in Auburn, that there have been plenty of teams that got screwed. A lot of teams got screwed. In 2020, why is Notre Dame more deserving than Texas A&M or Oklahoma? Oklahoma won a conference. Notre Dame did not. Texas A&M had the same record as Notre Dame and had to play the number one team in the country. And that was its loss. We can go through every season like that. Gold and blue dude, I tell you, we just keep working at it. I'm not so concerned that we've got a lot of channels, but we want them to be quality channels. Okay, here we go. Big show. If it wasn't for the playoffs, Clemson would have never gotten a chance, even in 2018. I say expand the playoffs to teams that win their conference. I love that comment. Clemson would have not been given a chance. So if there would have been a BCS in 2018, yeah, for the people that love the BCS, what would BCS done with 2019 or 2018 or even 2017? Everybody had one loss. Everybody in the playoff in 2017 had one loss. Right? There were no undefeated teams. Clemson was the 1 seed and they had one loss. All 4 teams in 2017 had one loss. What would the BCS do with that? 2019, 3 undefeated teams. What would the BCS done with that? Well, I can guarantee you, regardless, it wouldn't have been fair. This 2020 season, what would the BCS done with that? They had 2 undefeated teams, but Ohio State didn't play nearly as many games as Clemson. And we can kind of throw away 2020 because it was crazy and ridiculous across the board. But the BCS, yeah, so we got David Field saying BCS went wrong in 01, yes, 03, yes, 04, yes, 08, yes. 08's tricky, but yes. In 07, in 98, in 2000, got it wrong. Got it wrong in 2000. 1998, just the very first year, Tennessee's undefeated. Okay, who do they play? Ohio State, Wisconsin, Florida State, Arizona, UCLA, Kansas State. 6 teams have 1 loss. So who makes it? Ironically, the team that lost by the most points to the team with a 6-5 record, Florida State, losing to North Carolina State 24-7. They got in. Why? That's what the system said. That's what the formula spit out. Nobody could really explain it. Nobody really knew why. I do know that Ohio State's scheduled a game against Toledo that year because the Ohio legislation forced them to. Toledo was awful, like a 1-10 team, and that cost Ohio State just enough computer points to knock them to number 3. Is that fair? Did it matter that they played Toledo instead of Miami of Ohio or Bowling Green or somebody that they would have smacked around by 45 points? No. But because they played a 1-10 MAC team instead of 4-7 MAC team, they didn't make the national championship game. That's dumb. If you're one of the best teams in college football, whether you're playing the 130th best team or the 121st best team doesn't matter. Yeah, that BCS was a mess. It was just complete crap. We've got an argument between Tennessee and Ohio State in 1998. I do believe that Ohio State would have won that game, but I'm not going to say it like, of course that would have happened. Who knows? I think Ohio State was a better team, but again, who knows? That Tennessee team, boy, they won with smoke and mirrors. I was at the SEC championship game covering the game and watched them barely pull one out against a Mississippi State team that was 8-5. They didn't get the lead in that game until about 6 minutes left. They, of course, got the interference call week 1 at Syracuse that saved them. And they got the Clint Sterner fumble when nobody touched him. It wasn't a strip sack. If there's a strip sack, hey, that's a play by the defense. That's an amazing play. That's your defense making a play. But when somebody just drops the ball on the field, they won the games fair and square. It's not like It's not like a Colorado 5th down situation from 1990. Super Thrawn, 2001 Saban. OU loses to OSU. Texas loses to Colorado. LSU beat Florida, but Oregon got screwed. They should have played Miami. Oh, Oklahoma loses to Oklahoma State. Texas lost to Colorado. LSU beat Florida. Oregon. Yeah, so Oregon had a loss, but they won the Pac-12. Nebraska had a loss, but it was in humiliating fashion. Plus, they did not play in the Big 12 championship game. So, yeah, Oregon probably should have played Miami in 01. Agreed. So, probably screwed up that year, too. Q-Lee, 2007 was either the worst or the best BCS year, depending on your perspective. Yeah, can you imagine the Rod Farba if West Virginia would have won that game against Pitt? It would have been Ohio State and West Virginia in the national championship game. We could talk about this all night. We could talk about this forever. If you guys are interested in smart discussion about disputed national championships, type in the search bar on the front page of my channel, type in 1990, I'll back up here, 1983, 84, 90, 96, 2000. I think those are the ones I did. 83, 84, 90, 96, 2000. I think those are all the ones I did. Check those videos out. Let me know what you think. People typically have given me great feedback. I appreciate it. Those are fun to dive into. I would like to do every season. And I do mean every season. Even though 2020, Alabama won, they were the best. No disputing that. The teams that made the playoff, that can be disputed. I think every year's a disputed national championship. Some people think that's crazy, but I do believe that every year is a disputed national championship. So again, check out 83, 84, 90, 96, 2000. We produce those videos and would like you to give us some feedback. We've got McD making us some money here. Take Oklahoma minus 18 over Nebraska. That game will be Oklahoma by 21 at a minimum. Super regionals. Michael Palmer makes a good point there. So that Tennessee team was all lined up to play in the BCS championship game and was upended in a great game by LSU with Nick Saban, who then marched on to a Sugar Bowl win over Illinois and company. Dirk Cutter. No, Kurt Kittner. Dirk Cutter, Kittner, quarterback, yeah. Good stuff, everyone. It's been a good time with everyone. I think I'm going to hang it up at this point. Thank you so much, everyone. And what do we got here? Richard, I'll catch up with this one. Mark, I just know it. If your Buckeyes did not lose those guys to COVID, you guys would have beat Alabama, or it would have been much closer. Okay, well, Alabama was dominant last year. They won the national championship. They were the best team. All right. Appreciate everybody jumping online. It's been great. If you missed any of the conversation, what I'm going to try to do is knock out those first 8 minutes or so. So hopefully anybody watching on a rewatch is not going to have to weed through 8 minutes of me miming. Even though I'm a great mime, I'm probably the best in the business. I don't think there's any question about that. I think you would all agree, best mime in the business, the voice of college football, which is an oxymoron, of course, but what life's all about. All right. Appreciate everybody. We will see you soon. Hopefully tomorrow, Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Florida State Live. hang in there, keep those notifications running. I will keep you updated. My schedule is topsy-turvy right now, and we will keep it going here at the Voice of College Football. Thank you so much.